Have you ever noticed how the smallest details can carry the heaviest weight? A choice of words, a subtle gesture, or even a single piece of jewelry can speak volumes. When Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge, known to the world simply as Kate, appeared at the year's most important royal event wearing Princess Diana's favorite tiara, the moment was more than a style statement. It was a tribute filled with meaning, a bridge between past and present, a silent message of remembrance. But behind the glitter and celebration, behind the polished smiles and ceremonial grandeur, there were whispers growing louder with every passing day, whispers that something was terribly wrong within the palace walls. Rumors of jewels, not just any jewels, but treasures once belonging to the beloved Princess Diana, vanishing without explanation. At first, they sounded too wild to be true. Could anything so precious, so carefully guarded, ever simply disappear? And if so, who would dare risk everything to take them? The first signs of the mystery were barely noticeable, almost too subtle to catch. In the royal collection room, a carefully maintained vault of treasures, every object had its place, catalogued with precision. The attendants in charge were trained to detect even the slightest irregularity, but also trained never to raise alarm without reason. It was here that an experienced staff member noticed something peculiar, an empty space where Diana's iconic sapphire and diamond brooch should have been. This was no ordinary piece of jewelry. Diana had worn it on countless occasions, and its absence was as jarring as a missing portrait from a gallery wall. Yet the official records told a puzzling story. There was no note of removal, no loan, no cleaning request. The brooch had not been authorized to leave its place. It had simply vanished. At first, the attendant questioned whether it was an oversight. Mistakes, though rare, could happen even in a palace where perfection was expected. Perhaps it had been taken out briefly, forgotten to be logged in the thick leather inventory book. But as the attendant flipped through the carefully kept pages, there was no evidence. The silence of the records was almost more unsettling than the empty velvet cushion itself. Still, discretion was everything in such a world. Rather than speak out loud, the attendant scribbled a quiet note in a personal ledger, hidden away, carrying the burden alone. But the unease would not rest there for long. Within days, more anomalies appeared. A pair of delicate pearl drop earrings, remembered by many from Diana's charity gala in 1995, were gone. Then a bracelet, one that had been gifted to Diana during a diplomatic trip by a Middle Eastern royal family, also disappeared. Each loss followed the same haunting pattern: no record, no explanation, and no accountability. At first glance, they could almost be mistaken for clerical errors. But those closest to the jewels, those who understood the unshakable order of palace protocols, knew this was not mere negligence. A pattern was unfolding, deliberate and unmistakable, and with it grew an gnawing sense of betrayal. Catherine herself soon became aware of the growing whispers. Having worn some of Diana's most iconic jewels herself, she knew their significance not only as ornaments but as living symbols of a woman who had touched millions. The jewels were not just part of a collection. They carried Diana's spirit, her presence, her memory. To see them vanish was to see her legacy being stripped away piece by piece. Determined to understand what was happening, Catherine began to look closer, relying on her natural intuition and quiet strength. Her breakthrough came in an unexpected place. The quiet, dusty library of the palace, a room often overlooked, where history and secrets were preserved in brittle pages. There, Catherine spoke with an archivist, an elderly figure who had worked in the palace longer than most had been alive. With a grave expression, the archivist presented her with records kept for internal eyes only, detailing every authorized movement of the royal jewels. These documents, filled with signatures and dates, were the heartbeat of accountability. And as Catherine's eyes traced the pages, her heart sank. The removals of the missing pieces were all accounted for under one name, Camilla. The signature, steady and clear, appeared repeatedly. The record described the removals as loans to palace functions, but the jewels never found their way back. It was a discovery as shocking as it was heartbreaking. Could the Queen Consort, entrusted with the monarchy's dignity, have orchestrated such a betrayal? The evidence did not stop there. Soon, Catherine uncovered more discreet emails between the royal jeweler and a private appraiser in Geneva, detailing valuations of the missing items just days before they appeared in exclusive auction catalogs. There they were, coldly listed for sale: Diana's sapphire brooch, her pearl earrings, her bracelet. Described clinically, Stripped of their story, their royal connection carefully avoided. These were not mistakes. This was deliberate, calculated. For Catherine, the revelation was personal. Diana's jewels were more than heirlooms. There were tangible links between the woman William loved most in his childhood and the woman he loved most now. Each time Catherine had worn one, she felt the weight of Diana's memory, the grace and strength that still lingered in those stones. To know they had been sold in secrecy ignited a fire within her. What had started as quiet suspicion now demanded confrontation. And yet, palace life is a delicate balance of power, tradition, and silence. Confronting betrayal from within was not a matter of simply speaking out. It required evidence, precision, and a willingness to risk everything. With William at her side, Catherine began to collect the proof. For weeks, she traced auction houses, followed leads, and confirmed the links. Each clue was another step closer to the truth, another confirmation of the depth of the scandal. When the time finally came, Catherine and William carried their evidence into the private study of King Charles. The air was thick with history and expectation. Alongside the king sat Camilla, poised and seemingly unshaken, though a flicker of tension betrayed her calm exterior. One by one, William laid out the evidence, the signatures, the emails, the catalog photos. Each piece told a story that could not be denied. Camilla argued they were only moved for valuations, for insurance purposes, but the proof was too strong, too specific. The jewels had been sold, and her name was tied to every stage of their disappearance. King Charles, caught between loyalty and duty, faced an impossible decision. But the monarchy is built on more than individuals. It is built on trust and legacy. And so, after long deliberation, the verdict was clear. Camilla would remain Queen Consort in title, but her influence would be stripped away. She was removed from all matters relating to royal assets, her public role reduced to ceremonial appearances only. Quietly, she was relocated to a smaller residence, far from the heart of palace life. It was not a total exile, but it was a banishment of power, a reminder that betrayal has consequences, even within the highest walls. The scandal could have ended there, but Catherine and William were not satisfied until Diana's jewels were returned. Their search extended across Europe, working discreetly with auction houses and private collectors. Piece by piece, the treasures found their way back. The pearl earrings were the first to be recovered, returned willingly by a Geneva collector who understood their significance. The sapphire brooch followed, retrieved from intermediaries in Monaco after delicate negotiations. The bracelet, the most elusive, required Catherine's personal plea to its final owner, emphasizing the emotional and historical weight it carried. At last, the jewels were whole again. Their return was marked not by public announcement, but by a quiet reunion in the royal collection room. Under the watchful lights, the jewels shimmered as if reborn, symbols of resilience and restoration. For William, there were fragments of his mother, pieces of her life preserved against greed and betrayal. For Catherine, their recovery was a promise fulfilled, a way of safeguarding Diana's memory for future generations. The scandal, though carefully managed, left lasting marks. It raised questions about loyalty, about power, about how even in the most guarded institutions, betrayal can take root. But it also showed something more powerful, the determination of Catherine, her unwavering respect for Diana, and her willingness to confront shadows with truth. In the end, the jewels were more than treasures. They were symbols of love, memory, and resilience. Diana may never have worn the crown, but through her legacy, she remains a queen of hearts. Stories like this remind us how fragile history can be, how easily it can be rewritten or erased if not protected. And they also remind us that legacies, when cherished, can outlast betrayal. If you found this story as fascinating and powerful as I did, make sure to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss more untold stories from behind the palace walls.